Welcome back to another episode of my Failed Indie Shows podcast. In case you're new, I'm Pan-tastique, and this is my podcast where I talk about the ideas I had for my series, Spark and A Defense 5. Today, as I record this, it's Valentine's Day, which is a very fitting day for this subject. We all know the girl likes guy trope, right? Usually they've been besties since childhood, but the girl is trying to make it awfully obvious to the completely oblivious guy that she likes him, and the show just kind of plays a will they, won't they game the entire series long. And if you hate that trope, you will hate this episode, because this is all about the will they, won't they plot of Spark. Except the guy likes the girl. How original. I know. Just like episode 3, this is an episode idea I came up with very early on, but the shipping part wasn't part of it at the beginning. I wanted Anna to become the reporter best friend character from the get-go, so this episode was a no-brainer. And as I just mentioned, it gradually became a shipping episode, because I realized I really wanted to write one, in the spirit of be cringe, be free. Take the two little dolls in my dollhouse and smash their faces together while making kissy noises. Anna's blog starts off as a school project, and her blog eventually becomes popular enough again to return the physical version of her school's newspaper. Is that a thing in schools anymore these days? Because I graduated high school almost a decade ago. We had one. We had a physical newspaper. So the episode is called Spring Hill Star Reporter, and the episode starts off just as I described, with Anna struggling to come up with a subject to write about for her blog. Her English class has every student do a writing project that year, and Anna wants to write a blog, but she just can't think of a subject. She then calls James in hopes that they can brainstorm together, but he just acts weird and tells her to stay out of town before hanging up abruptly. Not to mention the sound of his friends yelling in the background and possibly an explosion. Of course, Anna turns on the news where the latest Defense 5 battle is being aired live, and Anna sees the swift Spark hanging up his phone. And then it clicks. I mean, it's stupid cartoon logic. If Miraculous and Superman can get away with it, so can Swift Spark, okay? Roll with it. And then in there, Anna decides that James will become her school project. They've got this app together that tracks your friends' locations. In the real world, I guess that would be Snapchat. And she uses that to find him. Foreshadowing, by the way. If you've read the comic, you know why, but I will be rewriting that particular scene to match this bit, because it didn't use the Find Your Friend app in that version. The next day, she puts her plan into action and follows James's phone to his last known location, and she's right on the money. Camera in hand, she finds a Defense 5 in the middle of a battle. And why does James carry his phone in a super costume, I hear you ask? I don't know, but I do know that I've been wondering where Amazing Spidey put his for over a decade now. Anna, because she has absolutely zero shame, rings the door of a random elderly citizen. Why does James carry his phone inside his super costume, I hear you ask? I don't know, but I do know that I've been wondering where Amazing Spidey put his for over a decade now. Anna, because she has no shame, rings the door of a random elderly citizen of a nearby apartment building, and he's chill. He's tiny, he's wearing flip-flops and a bathrobe while enjoying some hot cocoa. He lets her in, and she rushes to his balcony to start filming and taking pictures. The Defense 5 is battling this redneck riding a hoverboard with a super soaker that's basically got the power of a pressure washer on steroids. He's basically got a water-powered gun, yeah. And all he wants to do with it is destroy people's barbecues because he doesn't like the smell. In return for this sweet weapon, he's just got to maim some kids, and seems like a sweet deal to him. One of his shots barely misses Anna, and Samira notices that there's someone keeping tabs on him on a nearby balcony. James flies over to find Anna crouching there. He immediately goes into show-off mode while his friends actually take care of the Super Soaker. Super Soaker tries to blast Bella with a jet of water, but one wave of her hand and the water is portaled right behind Super Soaker, who's blasted off his board and caught by Thomas. James does some more showing off to Anna, and she's mildly amused by this change in personality that she's seeing now that he can hide behind his mask. Having all the footage she needs, Anna leaves, and the elderly neighbor gives James some advice. The girl said that she was here to do a school project, but isn't it summer vacation right now? You know, if I didn't know any better, I think she was here on a different kind of project, if you catch my drift. Our oblivious little man does not catch the drift. The next day, or a few days later, who knows? Anna is hiding behind a tree, snapping pictures of James and his friends again. She sighs at the sight of him, completely enamored, when suddenly she's attacked by the big, mean monster from the intro. He's threatening to step on her, and poor, helpless Anna shouts for help. Her hero hears her cry for help and swoops in at the speed of light, and he gets a kiss on the cheek for his good deed. And then James wakes up from his daydream. Yeah, I said it, didn't I? It's the girl like guy trope in full effect, but reversed. And I have zero shame. Samira shakes her brother back to the real world and tells him that there is another emergency downtown. What follows is a musical montage of Anna chasing the Defense 5 around town to write for her blog, and James continuing to up his antics trying to impress her. To varying levels of success, of course, because he's a little dunce, and I love him. After this montage, we introduce a new main player at Viper, but you might recognize him from the comic. If you've read it, that is. Agent Phillips. He's not fond of Marin's second-in-command status at Viper, and actively challenges the way she's going about things. He criticizes how her tech hasn't been effective, and how Daniel has been losing patience. Marin argues that she's now in charge of development of the new serum. She then comments on Anna and how she's practically been doing Marin's job for her, and that James is obviously head over heels for her. Marin reveals that she plans to put Anna in harm's way intentionally to see if James comes running. Phillips is appalled, but Marin reminds him that neither of them call the shots around Viper. And here's where you've got me happy again, because I took the opportunity to put James and Antonio back into Get Along Shirt again. They're on a stakeout mission together. We get some more banter between the two, as well as some more information on how Antonio's powers work exactly. Antonio has lost his eyesight, but in return his other senses are enhanced, as well as his strength. His glasses serve as his eyes though. Thanks to those, he can see infrared, but take them off and he's basically blind. And that's why he's very attached to them, and hardly goes without them. He mentions to James that he's heard some trouble further down, and it sounds like Anna. James wastes no time rushing off, much to Antonio's chagrin, who follows suit begrudgingly. See what I said last episode? See? I watched Sonic Prime in full last year after finally getting my hands on a physical release, and I loved it, and I laughed so hard at the parallels between Sonic and Shadow in that show, and my two doofuses, and I really wish that the games wrote Sonic and Shadow a bit more like that. But, tangent over. The episode then cuts to Anna, a little bit before that scream Antonio heard. She's finding herself mildly disappointed that James and Antonio have just been sitting on the same rooftop all day, but the finger on the monkey's paw curls as she speaks, as she's approached from behind by Metal Menace. He's Marin's first test subject with a new serum, enhancing his strength, and his gloves allow him to control metal objects around him. Anna tries to leave, but Metal just does as I described and yanks her phone from her hands. Metal was instructed to get Anna's phone for Marin, in case it had more material on it that Marin could use for her research. Anna jumps at her phone, trying to get it back, and Metal grabs her wrist, trying to force her to unlock her phone. Then James arrives and immediately starts up his tough guy routine again. Metal recognizes the opportunity he has and immediately ditches Anna in favor of going after James. He also yanks at James's phone, similarly to what he did to Anna's. But that one's inside of James's suit, so James is lifted off the ground and sent flying backwards. While James is gathering himself up off the ground, Antonio arrives and James receives yet another scolding for running off. Metal seems unfazed by the fight just turning into a 2v1, and he's excited about it, rather. He's a show-off. 2 teens, 1 stone, right? He once again uses his powers, and this time not only does James go flying, so do Antonio's glasses. Anna and James have another moment as she helps him crawl his way out of the garbage at the end of the alley. Very romantic, I know. Metal interrupts the two by throwing James to the other end of the alley again, where Antonio is standing, seemingly frozen in place. He's afraid to move without his glasses. Metal moves to grab James again, but this time he remembers he can go invisible. Good boy. Doing so breaks Metal's control over him because he's no longer physically present. James only has eye for Antonio though, reminding him that Antonio has fought just using his ears before. Particularly if you remember that moment in the comic. You know what your problem is, kid? You talk too much. James hammers home his point with one simple line. You keep looking in my direction when I talk, even though you have no idea where I am. This seems to boost Antonio's confidence enough, and he's ready to give it a shot. James asks Antonio for his handcuffs, which they use to arrest the Viper's biggest troublemakers whenever needed. It might sound weird because those didn't fly away, just like his glasses, but in the episode, there would have been a visual cue of Antonio stumbling forward as they were yanked at his belt. They just weren't yanked with enough force to make Antonio fall. Super strength and all that keeps his feet super glued to the ground. Antonio asks what James's plan is, and James just says to keep the guy busy as he runs off. Antonio, rolling his eyes, obliges and delivers a solid punch, even though he's not entirely sure still that he can. He pulls it off. Metal and Antonio fight for a bit before Antonio gets knocked down, and Metal once again draws in James, but this time he gets a little more than he bargained for. Yeah, this scene was ripped straight from the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2 because I fucking love that scene. James comes in flying with one end of the handcuff around his wrist and the other awkwardly forced around the handle of a drain cover. Why? Because he can just hold it with his hands, right? To ensure he wouldn't drop it or send it flying uncontrollably. Boy's finally grown some kind of common sense. Metal's face meets metal drain cover. Metal's face does not enjoy the meeting. Antonio and Anna express their concern for the poor guy, but James doesn't seem too bothered. He then turns to Anna, realizing that she called him James during their moment in the trash, their romantic the trash meeting. She pulls up the Find My Friends app on her phone and says that she just put 2 and 2 together. She then explains how she'd been following them around for her blog, and oh, poor buddy, he just deflates like a sad, embarrassed balloon, believing that she'd done it because, well, you know. But he doesn't say it, and he doesn't show how disappointed he really is. He just changes the subject, and they take Metal back to Lightning for his, well, probably a whole lot of dental work. Fade to black, all of that happens off screen, no need to see that, and we reappear at Lightning. And James happily announces that Angelo is making an exception for Anna, considering that she's James's best friend, and Viper already knows who she is now anyway. Wiping her memory might actually put her in more danger. Plus, her blog is an entertaining read, so why give that up, huh? They talk about whether or not this might change their dynamic, and James promises that it won't, and they then share a hug. Poor guy, could have gotten a kiss, but all he got is a hug. Back at Viper, Marin is tinkering with Metal's gloves again. Where did she get those? Because didn't Lightning take him in with his weapons attached? Well, Phillips is wondering the same thing, and turns out someone gave them back to Marin to keep Daniel off of her back. But who? No idea. She mentions that they need to keep Daniel happy if their mission is to succeed, and she's planning on making a reveal that will turn everything around. Phillips warns Marin an upset Daniel is dangerous, and Marin argues that that doesn't just apply to Daniel. Phillips assures her that their secret is safe. Marin responds to that by telling him not to make a promise he can't keep. And that's the episode. If it wasn't obvious yet, I really like this one. The beginning's a bit heavier on the shipping, but I feel like it balances out later on. It's just a bit of shameless fun, really. I love these two guys, and I basically grew up writing how their relationship plays out. That's a special little something, you know? And yeah, I've almost got it planned out in full. Will they? Won't they? I know. And you might too by the end of this podcast series. Trust me, it's going to be a lot of fun. Recording this episode was a lot of fun too. Vincent actually asked if Vincent Portella, the voice of James, asked if he could do a voice for Metal Menace to see if I liked it during our recording session, and I did. He did a fantastic job, and I really do hope that you guys will get to hear his performance in the future. It caught me off guard, actually. He's really got great range. And Super Soaker will be voiced by Mikey Reed, a friend of Vincent's. Basically, at this point, every time Vincent and I do a new recording session, he introduces me to a friend who heard about the show from Vincent and also wants to audition. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time a friend of Vincent's auditioned for the show, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? I've been having so much fun recording these episodes, both podcast and show. The cast is just... they're absolutely the greatest people on Earth, and I say that without any hesitation. I still fully intend to board these episodes and get them out, and even if they just stay storyboarded, I want you guys to hear the amazing work that the cast has done. If you guys are watching Vincent, David, Dan, Haley, I want to say everyone's name, but we're gonna be here for forever, and I can't thank you guys enough for being a part of this and for being so incredibly kind to and patient with me. There's still a couple of characters left to cast and record for these episodes, and I put all of that on hold last year until I get my personal situation sorted out, but we're gonna get to it eventually, I promise. It's funny though, as someone who's like deeply aromantic, if I like the characters enough, I can be such a sucker for a good love plot. I mean, it's cute. Who doesn't want to watch 2 dorks be cute together? Or at least, in this case, I guess it's you guys are listening to me describing 2 dorks being cute together. But hey, maybe one day we'll get to see them be cute. And there's always the concept art that I drew for the episode that you guys can look at if you're on a platform that allows for video. For now, this is where the episode ends, and I hope you enjoyed it. There's surely going to be another one about, let's call him Jonna, in the future.